Today I'm going to be using BSI. I got this at Hobby Lobby. Yeah, all right. So what I like to do is just do a little drop of each. Doesn't take much to do the baits. So we'll do one of each part. Try to get them as even as possible. If you don't, that could cause your baits to not harden properly. Looks pretty close. Next, just use a cheap paintbrush that I pick up also at Hobby Lobby. You can get a lot of supplies at Hobby Lobby. I love 40% off coupons. Definitely a thrifter, so if you like to save money, it's a good way to go. There's obviously tons of other ways to clear coat baits. This is just the way I've started. The only thing I've used so far, and I might try some other stuff in the future. Just want to give this a good stir. Try to make sure there's no bubbles. Get everything mixed together. Once it's mixed, you can proceed to putting it on the lures. Another great tool to have while doing this is a heat gun. It can come in handy with spreading. This stuff hardens out pretty quick, so I like to get the bills. Try not to get too much epoxy on them. You don't want to take away from the action of the lure, but I try to get a good seal on the whole bait so water doesn't get under the epoxy and cause the paint to come off. As you can see, I already glued the eyes on prior to putting the epoxy on. I find that makes it a little bit easier. They don't move around as much. And then I like to just coat the eyes in the epoxy as well. Keep those on, make sure they don't fall off. As you can see, this bait is sitting in what they call helping hands. Pick those up at Harbor Freight if you got a Harbor Freight in your area. Again, coupons, pretty inexpensive. If not, you can buy most all this stuff that I'm using on Amazon as well. Again, I try not to get the coat on too heavy. Just want to make sure I get the whole bait covered. Start out in the head area, not adding too much. I can go back and add a little bit more as needed. Sure, many of you probably have never painted your nails. Obviously, some of the ladies have. Whoa, that's not good. So just want to be very careful, get that back on there without touching the bait too much. We'll go back over those areas that I went and touched it. Obviously that can cause oil to get on there, so hopefully that does not mess up the clear coat. I want to try to move at semi-fast pace, that way, like I said, this stuff hardens up pretty quick. That way you can try to get coverage on the whole bait. If you need to, we can always go back and heat it up a little bit, spread it out a little bit, but as you can see, as you start to cover, it starts to move a lot easier. What I was saying about painting nails, this is very similar to putting on nail polish. If you have a daughter, obviously you've probably painted some nails. If you're a male, if you're a female, you've probably painted your own nails. If you're a male, you might even paint your own nails. I don't know. I don't know if you can see it, but in here there's some spots that still need filled, so you really got to be very careful not to miss any of those spots. If you do, you're going to be definitely putting a second coat on. Sometimes I put second coats on anyways, but if I can get by with one coat, stuff's pretty strong, so I try to. Make sure you get all the way into the hook holders. That way you don't leave any gaps there. If you have gaps and you don't seal it up all the way, it could cause the water to run in under your clear coat and remove your paint eventually. We'll go ahead and let that one sit. Then we will get this one ready. As you can see, it didn't take much epoxy to cover that lure, so again, we're gonna go with the little dab there. It's probably fairly close. Give it a good mix. So you want to really make sure you mix it until there are no bubbles. And then give the brush a little bit of heat there. Not too much, you don't want to melt your brush. And then we'll go on to our second lure here. Doesn't all have to be perfect right at first. Obviously the main point is to get as much of the epoxy coat over the whole lure as quick as possible, and then you can go fill in the spots from there. As you can see, I'm running really close with that second batch of epoxy that I dropped. Not a whole lot of it left, so it's going to be pushing it to cover the whole bait. But like I said, we can heat it up, thin that out a little bit, and get some of it off the paper. Not too much, doesn't take much. We'll just make sure we get in there and get the rest of it off. This was just some random lure I painted. Sometimes I have extra paint in the airbrush, so I just start throwing paint on a bait. This one turned out, I think, kind of looks like a peacock, maybe. I don't know, pretty cool looking. See if we can catch some pike and walleye on it. Like I said, we're just trying to thin that out. As you can see, there's some spots on the bill. Spread that out to get a nice coat on it. You also want to make sure you get the edge of the lip. It's a spot that's commonly missed when I'm doing these. Making sure we didn't miss anything. Alright, there you have it. We'll go ahead and let those set up, and then we can put some hooks on them and fish them. Thanks for watching.